So hello, and for those of you out there watching me talk, please feel free to send your questions. We're going to conduct this in English. However, if there's any question coming in Spanish, I'm going to answer that in Spanish. If it's short enough, I'll do bilingual, and if not, I'll keep it in Spanish. My name is Oscar Aguilar. I am originally an interventional cardiologist here in El Paso, and I've been working as such for the last 15 years. Throughout my work, it got to the point that I was very busy doing heart operations. And even though it was my ultimate goal, at some point I was questioning myself, probably about 6 or 7 years into doing that, about how much I was really doing for my patients, for my community, for my people, just operating hearts. Certainly, it was doing something good for me because I was making money. However, most patients, would come back a year later. Sometimes, if I operated very stubborn arteries, like in the legs or the kidneys, they would come back every 6 months for another operation. So I felt that this was not really contributing for health in general, but rather to fixing something at the end of a spectrum. And if we talked about disease in general, let's talk about with an analogy. Imagine that myself and two friends of mine are walking along the banks of a river. And the river, we can tell that is coming from our left side and is going to the right. That's the flow. And then on the right, we can see that there's a very deep fall. Like, the fall, and we cannot see down there, is very deep. On the left, we can see the river is coming from somewhere, but we cannot see where it's coming from, where is the origins of it. And all of a sudden, we see a young kid trying to swim out of the river. He's drowning, but clearly he's heading to the hill, to the fall, and he's gonna die. So one of us jumps in and tries to save the kid. And all of a sudden, while somebody's, the person that is trying to save the kid is pulling him out of the river, there's another kid coming into the river. And then all of a sudden, there's another one, and another one, and another one. So now somebody says, let's build a boat, and so we can save more kids at the same time. And sure enough, there we are pulling kids out of the river, but more kids are coming down the stream of the river. So then I said, you know what, why don't we go all the way to see what's happening and why those kids are jumping in the river. So we go there and we see that this, hypothetically, this big school has a hole in the wall, it's dark, kids cannot see, so they go and look into a slippery and they jump into the river without wanting to do that. So then the remedy obviously would be putting something in there in place so we don't have the kids jumping into the river even without wanting to jump into the river. So that's sort of like medicine, and that's the way medicine is being practiced in the world, not only the United States. Most of us are those guys that are jumping to save those kids already in the river. Some others, maybe very few, are building these boats to try to save those kids in the stream. And very, very fewer ones are the ones going up there where the problem started. And over the last 5 or 6 years, that's when I started thinking about, and given the fact that I was coming from an athletic background, nutrition, exercise, I said, I need to do more in those lines. And then I realized that medical school does not give us the tools to talk about it. We are not trained in nutrition. We're not trained in supplementation. We're not trained on exercise or prevention. Therefore, I went ahead and did this obesity training, which I liked. Then I certified as a wellness practitioner. Then I did a fellowship as a metabolic medicine and nutrition medicine. And then I did a fellowship in hormone replacement therapy. Now I'm doing a master's in public health. And now I see medicine in a different way. I see medicine in a way that I really want to be the guy that is taking care of those problems where they're coming from. And believe it or not, this is known many years back. Hippocrates, before Christ, said that all human diseases come from the gut, meaning from the GI, meaning from our abdomen inside the gut. And sure enough, now in 2017, we still say the same, but we never do anything about it. So that's when I started looking into true ways of preventing problems from happening. And I want you to call your attention towards something that is very interesting, which is called microbiota. Microbiota, very few people know about it, but it's 100 trillion bugs. We call it parasites, bacteria, fungi, and viruses that are inside our gut. They're like all over the gut, mostly in the large intestine, which we call colon. And again, there are 100 trillion. Now, if I were to count all of the all of the cells that we humans have in our entire body, from head to toes, we probably come out with 10 trillion, meaning we have 10 times more bugs than human cells. So in a way, we can say that we are more bacteria than humans. Now, what is the importance of these bacteria in the gut? Clearly, they have many roles, and we have to talk about them if we want to talk about health. Everybody asks me what's healthy when it comes to food. And it's, very difficult sometimes to define that because there's a lot of confusion created by the food industry, even by the pharmacy industry. And people do not really understand what is healthy and what is not. I have a few questions right now, and I'm going to be addressing that. I'm just going to finish with this information to move into the questions that are streaking in. So, make it simple. These bacteria in the gut have weight the same as our brain weights. So they are as important our brain. And not only that, let me tell you, the gut bacteria, the microbiota, rules the brain. They actually tell the brain what to think, how to think, what to crave as far as eating, what to crave for, how much to eat. They even tell us the mood that we are going to be in. They tell us, and they can make us, depressed. They, in general, do a lot of things for us. These bacteria in the gut decide for us how we are going to digest food, how selectively we're going to digest food, how and how much and selectively we're going to absorb food. In exchange, they're being fed by us by what we're eating. So eating is the most important thing, because if we eat a lot of good things for them, their metabolites, meaning sort of like those things that they produce while they're eating, are good for us. And they produce vitamins like vitamin K. They help us absorb tons of vitamins. They help us absorb nutrients. And they produce some little chain fatty acids in our gut that are very healthy for our gut. They also produce gas. And it's not the gas that we're thinking about that somebody, needs to take out of their body. These gases goes into the system and help lower the blood pressure or increase the blood pressure depending on what kind of gas we're talking about. Now, not only that, these bacteria produce neuromodulators. Neuro comes from the brain. Modulators, they really tell a brain a lot of things. How much we're sleeping, help the bacteria. They tell us how much we need to sleep, and so forth. All this insomnia, all these problems with sleep can come from the gut as well. Nowadays, our food intake is very rich in carbohydrates, and we have to be careful with carbohydrates. There are two kinds, complex and simple. Complex are vegetables and some fruit. Those are great because complex is fiber, and we'll talk about it. But right now, in our daily diet, we are eating too much simple carbohydrates like sugar, and sugar derives everything that has to do with sugar, like flour, even cereal, yogurt, everything that comes processed in a bag. That's all those things have a bunch of sugar, and sometimes, cleverly so, the sugar is hidden in the label. You cannot even see it, and you think that it has no sugar. Well, that's baloney. That's not true. That's just marketing. And even though bacteria in our gut, the microbiota, like sugar, they don't work well with sugar. So, what bacteria likes the most is fiber. And if we don't give them fiber, then they're going to be trying to eat something else from our gut, and they go into the mucus lining that we have mostly in the colon. It's made of mucin. And when they start eating that, they get exposed to our cell lining of the gut, and that's where diverticulosis and a bunch of other problems in the gut start, like colitis, inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, and all these things that people talk about. But not only that, our immune system, remember the immune system is the one that defends us from infections and insults that we can get. 80% of our immune system lies in our gut. Why? Because the only port of entry, natural port of entry to our body is through the mouth. So everything is there to defend us. It's like a fort. Everything is defending the main gate. So, if we are not treating the bacteria well, we're going to get inflammation. And inflammation is the mother of all diseases. And arthritis, psoriasis, multiple sclerosis, cancer, heart disease, all of those come from inflammation. So the bottom line is this. Having a healthy microbiota includes eating a lot of fiber, mostly plant-based. But that doesn't mean that we cannot eat protein like beef, fish, poultry, and things like that. We just need to be careful about their source and about the content. And some of the foods currently have a lot of antibiotics that hurt the microbiota. So we cannot be a healthy nut. We have to enjoy. But there's ways to enjoy being smart, selective, what we're eating and what we should eat. That's the reason NOSH was born. Because NOSH builds plates, diverse amount of plates that are very heavy on fiber with good amounts of protein and some good fats called healthy fats. So now let's go and answer some questions that we have here. Is mayonnaise okay on a diet? By George. Okay, mayonnaise, there's two kinds, the one that you can buy in the store and the one that you can make at home. If you can make it at home, it's going to be okay, especially if you do not add any carbohydrates like sugar. The one that you buy at the stores is going to be two kinds. One, low fat, which may have some sugar, and the other one, regular. In general, I think mayonnaise, a little bit of it is okay. But the trick is this, the quantity. That's the most important. I think mayonnaise is mostly a fat that is in between the healthy and not so healthy. I would be careful, but certainly we can eat a little bit of mayonnaise. So, there's another question here. Is dieting bio-individual? Oh, you mean, fine. You know, it's important to remember that microbiota is what dictates what kind of health we are in. And the microbiota starts, we used to think that when we go through the birth canal. However, now we know that even in the womb, inside our mom, when we are in the uterus, we start building our own microbiota. Oh, that's huge. That's very important. But when we go through the birth canal, we acquire the bacteria from my mom's vagina. So that's the first or second microbiota. That's what we started building up. Nowadays, for example, in my clinic, we have a way to measure that microbiota and get to know what we're missing, how healthy, how unhealthy, how much inflammation is there, and what it needs to be better. So at that point, then we can say that we are creating a customized bio-individual diet. And yes, that's very doable, and it's recommendable. However, if we follow general rules and terms, everybody can become healthy. And remember, if we could get everything from our diet, we would not need supplements. The problem is this: a human diet back hundreds of years ago used to have around 100 grams of fiber. Nowadays, in the United States, it varies between 5 and 10 grams of fiber on a daily basis. So we're eating 10 or 20 times less fiber than we used to. So the key is fiber. And it's not the same as Metamucil or other fibers out there. Those are different kinds of fibers that are insoluble. Mainly, they help us to go to the restroom. What we're talking about is mainly soluble fibers. Most of those are natural, coming from plants. Kale, broccoli, spinach, some lettuces, not all of them, are heavy on fiber. Onion is excellent on fiber. There's another question in here. Is the preferable source of fiber just greens and oats? Okay. One of the important things about the microbiota is that we like to have a diversity in the microbiota. It is like we don't want to have more one of this or the others. Having a diversity is having a healthy gut. So eating a diverse amounts of fibers is the best way to go. Leafy greens, orange vegetables, all kinds of colors tend to have a little changes in the kinds of fibers. So diversity is key. Now, think about oats. I would be very careful with oats. Oats indeed have some fiber. The problem is that in the United States right now, most of our agricultural fields are contaminated significantly with chemicals. Chemicals that agricultural people use for the advantage of producing more, higher amounts of crops, bigger harvests, cleaner harvesting, and so forth. But those chemicals like glyphosate are going against our microbiota. So in general, whether we consider grains to be healthy, we have to be very careful because nowadays they come with a lot of glyphosate. So in general, I'll tell my patients at the beginning to stay away from oats for at least 2 months, maybe 3 months, and see how they're feeling, how they're doing without them. Another thing that is extremely heavy on glyphosate is wheat, soy, barley, rye. All of these things that come in usually in bread, in a kind of flour and so forth. And people say, well, brown bread is better than white, and black bread and whole grain and whatever else. That is not true. Bread is bread, and bread is sugar right now, but bread with grains and so forth tends to be contaminated, as we say, because of the wheat with glyphosate. And at the beginning, to my patients, I try to keep them away from bread for at least a couple of months and see how they're doing. Besides, there's a 10 to 15% of the population in the United States that are very sensitive to gluten. Not everybody's sensitive, but that 10-15% of people would benefit significantly from being away from gluten. So we stop gluten, which comes mostly on those foods that I mentioned, to see where we're going. That 10-15% of people with significant sensitivity to gluten can derive arthritis, a disease called celiac kind of symptoms as well, feel tired, fatigue, joint pains. They have a hard time getting up in the morning. So all of those are symptoms that they don't have a very healthy microbiota. Another thing that affects microbiota is all the sugar substitutes. For example, Splenda. Splenda has an insecticide effect. It actually kills part of microbiota. What else? What is the name of aspartame or NutraSweet or Sweet and Low? All of those have detrimental effects in our microbiota, therefore in our health. Major studies from Stanford University, a very strong university, have shown that those substitutes coming from diet Cokes, diet sodas, have shown to make people gain more weight as opposed to helping lose weight compared to regular sodas. I'm not saying regular sodas are better. I'm just saying they're less worse. No soda pop is good, and we feed our kids with a lot of sodas. Well, flavor is a flavor. Who's not gonna like a Coke? However, everything should be in good amounts because there's tons of sugar. 1 little can of Coke, a regular can, has between 11 and 12 tablespoons of sugar. That's a lot. That's more than what you probably need in the whole day. Now, there's another question here that says, when it comes to supplements, do we need to buy them, or is the need based on what we are not eating? Okay, Joe, to know exactly what you need to take, it's better to measure what your needs are. There's not one size fits all when it comes to supplements, when it comes to health. So I cannot tell you that you go and buy this and this and that. You know, we humans are very good to think that one small variable is going to change our life. And people, just give you an example, people say that green tea is good, which it is, but we think that drinking green tea every day is going to make us healthier. So people base their decision on that, and they don't do other things that they should be doing, and they forget about it. So we need to measure to see what you need. Across the board, most people need vitamin D, D as in David. Extremely common that people do not have vitamin D. And that comes because the microbiota is not very healthy. We're not absorbing vitamin D normally. And for other reasons, all these processed food don't have vitamin D anymore. So I would measure them and then see what you need. There's supplements out there that are going to be helpful no matter what. There's supplements that can hurt you if you take too much. So you need to really talk to someone that really understands about supplements. There's also a lot of marketing out there, a lot of businesses just trying to collect money on supplements. So there's supplements, thousands of thousands out there in the market, so you have to be very careful. Talk to someone that really knows about supplementation. Okay, who sells Fallout protein? That's a question. I'm not sure about who's selling it, and so I will not be able to answer that, but I promise if you send me a message through the Texas Integrative Medicine and Cardiology page, I'll find for you that question. I'll be very happy to do that. Okay, there's another question here that it says, what is a natural source that you can clean your colon? This is a nice question, and it's important to remember that the most important way to treat our colon right is with good food, is with natural, whole food, high in fiber, mainly plant-based, vegetables, all the things that we discussed already. Vegetables, vegetables, vegetables. Do you need to become a vegetarian? Absolutely not. I am not a vegetarian. I don't think I'm going to be a vegetarian. I am from Mexico. I am from the north of Mexico. I like my beef. I have to be careful about the source of the beef, but I eat beef quite a bit. I eat fish. I like fish, especially when it's wild caught. I like chicken, especially when it's free-caged chicken and it's sort of like a wild chicken. But sometimes it tends to be expensive. Remember that. The more a person, I tell my patients, the more a person knows, the more knowledgeable they are, that will give them power to decide what they should not eat. That power is going to translate into freedom. Just like in the slavery times, power came from knowledge and power gave them freedom. It's the same with food. Once those industries out there see that we are making the right decisions as far as health, then the production of those kind of foods are going to go up, and eventually the prices are going to go down. It's simple like that. Do we enjoy not healthy things on and off? You bet. Again, you know, I'm from Mexico. We are probably the kings of eating antojitos and all these great things that we crave on and off. So once in a while, it's perfect to just indulge and do whatever you want. You know, Aristotle said that we humans are the results of what we consistently do. Therefore, you are 90% healthy and 10% not so healthy, then you're healthy. You're 95% healthy and 5% not so healthy, you're healthy. If you're 50-50, you know, the dark forces are going to dominate, so you're not going to be that healthy. And I think also it's very interesting, very helpful to get into a regimen, some kind of routine. Get up at the same time, do the same things in the morning, have breakfast in a similar way from day to day. So when that day comes that you're going to do something that is not very healthy, you won't be affected by it. That's what I tell my patients to do, and it works. Another question here. Are unsalted pumpkin seeds recommended? Pumpkin seeds are one of those things that are very high in good fat, in healthy fat. So good amounts, not too much, but pumpkin seeds as more natural as possible, the less processed, the better. Yes, they're okay, and we recommend them quite often to our patients. You know, it's an important thing to keep in mind also. We have more processed foods all the time and every time, and more processed food, more chemicals and more chemicals. There's a rule, this is a natural rule, that says that everything that gets into our gut that is not very well known for the gut, like these new sugars derivatives and all these things, is going to become fat. So you wonder that you have a big belly, that you have a belly that you cannot get rid of, that you're killing yourself at the gym 2 hours a day doing cardio, and you're not seeing the results. Obviously not. Losing weight is not going to come from the gym. The gym is going to help, but that's going to be an additional help. Weight is going to come off from the kitchen, meaning what you eat, or rather what you're not eating. So following a healthy diet is very simple because it's actually fun and can be very tasty. And it comes back to the examples of Notch. I have an association with Notch, and I have to disclaim that. However, Notch was born for that reason. There was nothing around in El Paso that I really